So you can see how you can manipulate the margin of these divs fairly easily. Now if I want to go to padding, I can do this same shorthand. If I wanted to do padding of 15 pixels, it'll take A1 and it'll place it in the space inside of this div. So you can see when I add padding to all sides, it changes the dimensions of the document itself. So I'll go ahead and add padding to A1 as 15 all the way around. I'm going to do add A2 with the shorthand just the way we did margin, where it's top right, bottom left. So I'll do top is 15, right is 40 pixels, bottom is 18 pixels, and then left is going to be 90 pixels. So you should be able to see the difference there. Div number 3, I'm going to give it a padding. I'm going to do another shorthand, which is going to be just 2 elements, so the first 2 are going to specify the top and the bottom, and the next 2 are going to specify left and right. So I'm going to do 30 for top and bottom, and 5 pixels for left and right. I decided to do more on that top and bottom, so I have 80 pixels on both. And then the last one, I'm just going to do padding dash left, so you can see that you can add just specific instances to this property. So if I want to do padding left, padding right, padding bottom, padding top, I could do that and just specify one element. So I'm going to say padding left is going to be 35 pixels. And refresh it. So you can see how my elements are now different based on the space inside this div. So margin, of course, specifies the area surrounding the div. The padding specifies the area inside the div and outside of the content itself. This would be considered the content, the A div number 1. But then we have one element, which is the border here, that's black, and it's 5 pixels thick, and the way I know that is because of this border element that's on all 4 of the divs. This is a shorthand element for border, and then you have border style, which is solid, border width, and then border color. So this is a hexadecimal statement for color that you can find in Photoshop if you're working through Photoshop. You can find that in the color selector area. It'll give you a 6-digit color number for any RGB or CMYK color that you have if you open up the color the color area. So the border itself is 5 pixels. Then it's solid. If I wanted to change it, I could do dotted or a host of many other border types. You can see dotted now. So I'm going to take it back to solid. So that includes 5 pixels. So it's 5 pixels at top, bottom, left, right, like that. So it's a total of 10 pixels top and bottom, because you're counting 5 here and 5 there. So you want to keep that in mind if you're doing math for spacing on your website. So that's the shorthand for border, meaning you can specify the border width, border style, and border color all in one. If you wanted to do it separately, you could do that. Border dash width 5 pixels, border dash style solid, border dash color, and then give it a hexadecimal value. Or if you want to just do red, you just do red. Standard colors are straightforward, but we don't need that because we have the shorthand version. So that's your border, and then of course the content itself. If you want to see the space that the content is actually taking up. You can see that, especially now that it's reflected with padding. You can create a paragraph tag for each of these divs for the text, because paragraph is what formats the text. So I'm giving it an opening tag and a closing tag, and I'm going to save it, and let's refresh. So now there's a little more spacing. They've actually given you a typical space that would come when you create a paragraph. It gives you a new line when you start a paragraph, or when you close a paragraph. It gives you a new line. So that's why it jumped down a little bit. But if I create a background color for my paragraphs, you can see the spacing that's been given to us by our padding elements. So it shows the left and right padding. So if you were to create text that would go all the way left to right, it would stop at the edge of this white box. Same thing with that to the right side. You can only put text in this area, inside this area, because the padding, that's how much padding we've been given. So let's try this. You can see now that there's no padding in this text area. So the text area goes from the border all the way to the other border. If I brought that back and had padding left, you can see there's spacing in between the content and the border, which is the padding. So that's what we're talking about here. If I take the padding off of div A3 and I refresh it, you can see there's still spacing in between the top and the bottom, and that's because we've created a height of 100 pixels and then the width of 250. So there's 250 width, which is here to here, and then height is 100. And you can see the paragraph has created that one line for it, for this document. So it'll automatically format to this extra margin space. If I wanted to cut that margin, that spacing out, I would start with that, and you can see it comes up all the way to the top. So it's the margin aspect, and I'm just doing this by trial and error. So the margin aspect, that makes sense, because the margin is the area surrounding that actual paragraph. And you can see this is the area of the paragraph, and the margin would be the area surrounding that paragraph. So if I wanted a border on this paragraph, I could make one. And you can see there's a small purple dotted line surrounding the paragraph. So with each element, you've got a series of space to work with. You have the content itself, you have the border surrounding that div or that element that you're using. Then you have the padding. I have padding inside of this text area, and I have padding inside of this area, and then I have the border. So content, padding, border, and margin is the surrounding space around the box.